How's it going, guys? My name is Falling Hearts, and today we're going to be looking at a game that was getting a good bit of attention a while back, but there seemingly has been a few small developer updates that I figured I'd finally hop in and talk about it. Today we're going to be talking about Bloody Hell Hotel. And if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it is a stylized first-person game where you will renovate, upgrade, and expand your hotel. Oh, and by the way, you're a vampire. So, hospitality isn't really your strong suit, so you'll have to make do. And as I'll have the trailer kind of playing in the background here, you'll get an idea of more of what the game is, even if this may be partially proof of concept animation. To catch you up to speed the rest of the way though, we don't know exactly when the game is coming out or what all it will be coming out for, but initially it can be assumed that for early access, it'll be coming out strictly for PC, and that is from the developer and being self-published by Unfold Games, the developers of the game Dark, one that I haven't played but I actually am looking into playing here soon, but it seems to be a completely different genre. Now, fortunately, thanks to the Steam page, we actually do know quite a bit more about the game, or at least a general idea of what the gameplay will be like. So as stated about the game, in Bloody Hell Hotel, you embody a vampire. You wake up from a coma that has lasted for centuries, only to find out that your once granted estate is now in ruins. It's time to turn it into a prosperous hotel once again. It's no easy task though, as times are tough and resources are scarce. There are shortages of food, supplies, and workforce. Being a bloodthirsty monster doesn't help with the customer satisfaction either. Luckily, underneath the estate lies a crypt and a system of caves. By foraging, farming, crafting, and fighting your way through the monster-infested dungeons, you'll find the resources you need to restore greatness to the mansion and turn it into a thriving hotel business once again. So right there, off the bat, we're already introduced to a lot of things that we're going to be doing in the game. Very much a management simulator type of game, but continuing on, we have the renovation, where we will fix broken furniture, clean rooms, hang wallpaper, and install appliances and make your once grand estate look presentable once more. Don't forget to use your vampiric powers to speed up the process, and in the GIF it kind of shows the telekinesis abilities. And with that being said, honestly, this part of the game, cleaning everything up and, making everything presentable once again, sounds a lot like that game House Flipper if you've ever seen it. And that, in and of itself, is actually super satisfying as a gameplay loop, and I hope as you open up more of the hotel, that continues to be paramount throughout the experience. But next up we have the customization, where we will also upgrade, decorate, and furnish your hotel, and you'll make it your own. And it shows here that you can put different wallpapers on, kind of pick where the bed and all the different furniture goes, and just fill out the room. And I'm sure for customer satisfaction, having pictures and stuff all over the wall to make it a little more presentable will go a long way. But of course, continuing on with those customers, we have to feed. You'll need to meet the expectations of even the most demanding guests. Or don't. You're a vampire after all. You'll suck your guests' blood to regenerate your powers, and use their meat to save money for food. So maybe you can make your guests feed on human meat instead of actual, other meat, like chicken, I suppose. Very Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you ask me, so that'll be pretty cool. But then, of course, you actually can farm and cook in the game, and they will expect high-quality room service. While ingredients are pretty costly, you can farm, milk the undead cow that you see in the trailer, collect eggs from zombie chickens, and find wild mushrooms that grow around the hotel. And when it comes to meat, as I already mentioned, nobody needs to know where it comes from, so you'll follow recipes and prepare even the most extravagant dishes for your guests. And to me, the actual cooking aspect of this game seems like it could be its own game in and of itself. Like, it sounds like a mobile game. But if you're going to flesh out the mechanics of how to get the ingredients and what to do with the customers once you've satisfied them, then hey, this could be a really involved and engaging whole-on gameplay loop around the hotel. And that to me is really exciting. Next up, we'll need to make weapons to go underground into those dungeons. You'll need to be careful when stepping into those corridors, and you might need a good sword to defeat the monsters that hide in the darkness. And luckily, you can make your own weapons from scratch. All you need is a blacksmith's workshop, a set of tools, and a handful of raw materials, which hopefully, as we need better weapons, we'll find them in the caves as well. Conveniently, they are all located right underneath the hotel's lobby. And while exploring the dungeons, now that you're armed to the teeth with self-made weapons, you'll find many resources that you need to unlock countless upgrades to your hotel. Which, in concept, is really cool. It almost reminds me of, this could be like a roguelite type thing, where if you do die down there, you're just going to wake back up in your bed for whatever reason. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, and, maybe you lose a day or something worth of work, and people won't get their needs met during the time that you're knocked out because you can't make those business decisions. But maybe that's just me, who knows. But finally, you need to manage your hotel. And once the hotel does grow in size, you'll need to be able to hire employees, or as you may know, as your fellow vampires. You might need a cook, a housekeeper, a porter, a receptionist, whatever task you need to delegate to, you can probably find someone to do it. All of this will take good cash flow and blood to entice them, which new customers means cash and blood if you can take out the right ones, I suppose. But that is everything we actually know from the Steam page. However, there have been 2 developer updates posted since, one on 9/11/2022 and the other on October 15th, so I would even expect a new one to come out pretty soon after I'm making this video. So for the first update that I'll be talking about today, it's going to be over vampire classes. And while this is pretty cool and I'm really excited to get into it, they actually used a bit of the first section of the update to give a Q&A. First off, they talk about how you can contribute to the game, seeing as how it's not out yet, but they're being very open about what they want to do. So the first thing they mention is the Discord server, where you can go and join up. There you can provide feedback or contribute ideas. And they even go on to say that if your idea ends up being in the game, that you'll be featured in the credit roll and given a copy of the game when it launches. They've already mentioned that 3 members of the community have already contributed something to the game, one of which being the main point of this conversation, the vampire classes. But then they also go on with the rest of the Q&A to talk about the release window. The question is, of course, when is it? And while they talk about how they're really excited that people are so enthusiastic and can't wait to play the game, they also wanted to be upfront about the fact that they're only in the pre-alpha state. Now, this was months ago at this point. And one thing that I really appreciated, as they mentioned, is that the quality bar for the project is super high, and that's why it's going to take a lot of time. They are committed to skipping the official early access title where, games come out buggy, broken, unfinished in a lot of ways, not feature complete, and they want to deliver a highly polished game from day one. And really, that's all they have to say, pre-alpha state. They do say to stay tuned, as there will be more stuff coming. They promise regular updates, early previews, sneak peeks, and even AMAs with key team members. Continuing off of more information that we'll get, another question that was asked is, when can we see actual gameplay? And it's with this answer that we learned that the game has, at this point, at the time they say 19 months, now it's been about 2 years. And that's when they say that it's simply too early for an extended gameplay showcase of unedited and unaltered gameplay. They do promise that the main game will be much bigger than what the trailer does show, stating that some systems are simply unfinished or even unimplemented into the game yet, and others are, subject to change, which is clear from the fact that feedback could still make it into the game in a major way, like vampire classes. Otherwise, once again, they basically just say stay tuned. But they did seem open to the idea of doing an open beta or demo when the time does come, so be looking forward to that if you want to test your machine. And then finally, the last 2 questions are something that's super interesting. First off, I'll get the easy one out of the way now. There is going to be full controller support for the game, which is super exciting. The other feature that a lot of people were supposedly asking about was VR support. Interestingly enough, they said that there were originally no plans for it, but it quickly became clear that Bloody Hell Hotel would translate very well into a VR experience. So they're putting it on the post-launch to-do list. Though something to note that VR support will be outsourced to a different studio when the time comes, and one that has a lot more experience in the area. Now finally, for the main point of this first update, the classes. So apparently the community really loved the idea that the player could choose a different class to play as their vampire, not just having one set character. Adopting a now RPG-like approach, you'll be able to create your own character, choose one of the 6 classes, select a gender, and come up with a name for your vampire. Each class will feature a different set of arms, which in first-person mode is all you'll really see of your vampire regardless. And each class will have their own unique skill tree as well. Most importantly, each class will offer a completely unique way of playing the game, so adding a lot of replayability if you really like the gameplay loop here. And thankfully, we already know all of the 6 classes and have an idea of what each of them will do. First off, we have the Darkstrider, who is swift and adept, and they make their home in the shadows. These skulking vampires are masters of deception, manipulation, and subterfuge. Their dexterous forms make them feel comfortable in combat, but also right at home in the kitchen, where they may be cooking their guests' first and possibly last meal. Next up, we have the Necrocaster, and no one is quite sure what era or region the Necrocasters hail from, and their origin remains a mystery. A relic from some unknown time, these mystical vampires are capable of supernatural powers unseen by modern eyes. The Necrocaster's terrifying form is devoid of humanity, and while it leaves them physically feeble and decrepit, their powerful magic carries them in combat and hotel management impeccably. For the third one, we have the Blood Charmer. No vampire is as captivating as the Blood Charmer. It's unclear how they do it, but blood charmers have been known to persuade their victims to willingly donate some of their blood. Be it their natural charisma or some kind of dark magic, something about them just makes guests more generous. And those who bear witness to the Blood Charmer's horrifying deeds, they continue their lives completely unfazed, as if entranced by a master hypnotist. After that, we've got the Neckbreaker, and they're named for their forceful feedings, of course, and they embrace the strength given to them by their vampiric blood. It says that those that give in to the animalistic power are capable of great physical feats, which makes them powerful warriors and perfect for blue-collar work like mining, forging, and smithing. Their natural strength is a great boon, but it leaves them with little interest in technology or chit-chatting with Yes. Next to last, we have the Youngblood, capable of surviving the light of day, which is really interesting. The Youngblood still remembers the taste of roasted pork and good wine. Clinging to clouded memories of their humanity, Youngbloods recall many human efficiencies, such as farming, technology, and small talk. Vampires of high society may turn up their noses to such frivolity, but even they long for the warmth of the sun's embrace. And then on the inverse of that, we have the Primordial. Respected far and wide, the Primordial are vampire royalty, dating back further than any other vampire clan. Because of their high status with the Vampiric Council, the Primordial are granted special privileges. They could sit back and enjoy the easy life, but the aristocratic bloodline is not afraid of getting their hands and fangs dirty. These powerful and cunning vampires know how to run castles, and a hotel probably shouldn't be a problem either. And then as a little side note, they do say that you may have noticed the mention of the Vampiric Council, and they say that they will go on to explain the significance and how it affects the gameplay in future updates. I really wonder if the Vampiric Council is going to show up and want to stay at your hotel, and you just need to have it in the best possible condition. For the second and final update from the developers, we have to talk about guest traits. In Bloody Hell Hotel, every guest is unique and can be described by traits, likes and dislikes, and secrets. The traits affect the general behavior of guests in the hotel. Traits are linked to the guest's appearances as well, so it'll be really easy to tell what a guest is and what traits they have based off of what they look like. Some traits include unhygienic, anxious, impatient, stingy, insomniac, snobs, or royalty. And while this is a pretty wide mix and you can kind of see how each of these works against some of the classes from the different vampires, reading through this, it's really interesting just to see how different they'll make the gameplay. For instance, the unhygienic will create messes that you'll have to tend to, but they're also pretty heavy drinkers, making them deep sleepers and easy prey. There's more to it for each of them, but another example would be the stingy. They're penny pinchers and they won't tip, no matter how good your service is, so you might as well not even try. And if your prices aren't low enough, they'll complain. But if you have a good pickpocketing skill, they aren't poor because they've been holding on to all their money. Or finally, all the way at the very top, you have the royalty, who won't even sleep in regular rooms. They're extremely generous if treated well, and royal blood, interestingly enough, a little more lore details here, can be sold to the Vampiric Council at a premium price. Something I'll go into just a little bit further here in just a moment is that the Vampire Hunters Guild keeps a close watch on royalty. The disappearance of a royal guest will be noticed and investigated by vampire hunters, the toughest enemy in the game. And with that being said, let's go back and look at some of the likes and dislikes. As I've already kind of mentioned, this is something else you'll have to kind of balance with the guests. Each guest has a unique combination of likes and dislikes, and your ability to meet your customers' expectations will affect their generosity, such as tips. And while I've already talked about how getting some of these things done quickly will help with certain aspects, or how the stingy won't even tip you very much at all, but they'll also leave you good reviews for your hotel. Needless to say, you don't have to care about making your customers happy. After all, you're a bloodthirsty vampire. Letting your guests live is a choice, not a must. And finally, something that interests me a lot is the secrets. Each guest has at least one secret, and that's something that is not immediately revealed to the player. For example, a guest can be a vampire hunter in disguise, something that we've already kind of mentioned, and they could be kind of tailing the royalty. And these vampire hunters are pretty deadly when they're attacked, but they act like ordinary guests when unprovoked. Uncovering secrets is pretty challenging, but not impossible. In most cases, it can be done either using your vampire powers, special food ingredients like truth serum, or buying intel from the Vampiric Council, if your relationship with the Vampiric Council is high enough, which I assume the more royalty or the more you do for them, your relationship will go up, of course. And while I didn't break down every little trait or different things like that from each of these different classes of guests, I think it's really crazy just how far the game will go as far as detail. And once again, the idea of guest secrets on top of their traits and likes and dislikes actually comes from, once again, the community. So really interesting, and if you have any other ideas, go ahead and follow them there, or if you're looking forward to seeing more about the game, then go ahead and follow me here. Because there isn't really much else to talk about with the game as of right now. It looks really interesting and really fun, and I'm really excited to cover more, but for right now, that's it. So consider subscribing, and check back in with me whenever you see another Bloody Hell Hotel video. Anyways, I'm out here, going back into my coffin. Falling Hurts, out.